Your life is not being improved by right-wingers coming for trans people, lying about trans healthcare, and presenting it as something that is like ruining the world. You will not have healthcare just because trans people are suffering. Real world politics that I wanted to talk about. So I saw this. US Attorney General Pam Bondi wants FBI to place cash bounties on trans activists. The Trump administration's chief legal advisor instructed the US Security Service to create a cash reward system, incentivizing members of the public to share information on what the attorney's office described as domestic terrorist groups. These groups, according to Bondi, include groups or individuals promoting so-called radical gender ideology and hostility towards traditional values on family, religion, and morality. Do you remember like the Antifa situation? Basically like this again. The leaked memo issued on 5th December argues the strategy would lead to successful identification and arrest of relevant individuals and groups. There's this one clip where it's about like Antifa.
So where is Antifa headquartered?
What we're doing right now with the organization.
Where in the United States does Antifa exist?
Yeah.
If it's a terrorist organization and you've identified it as number one.
We are building out the infrastructure right now.
This is going to all play into a big point that I want to make when it comes to like what is happening in the US and quite frankly everywhere in the world where there's a rise in right-wing propaganda and fascism and so on. I saw like this clip.
Men are men. Men can never become women. Women are women. Women can never become men.
Everyone is fucking 12. He sounds so sad about that. Yeah, he is devastated. You know, we got the same from like Marjorie Taylor Greene.
God only creates two sexes and two genders, male and female, and God does not make mistakes.
You're a mistake. Shut the fuck up. The House of Representatives has unfortunately passed the Protect Children's Innocence Act, which would criminalize gender-affirming care for trans children. A lot on Twitter posting like, oh my god, they finally banned the trans surgeries on children, something that doesn't even happen. A lot of it is like puberty blockers and like the gender-affirming surgeries that performed on children. Mainly 98% performed on cisgender boys with gynecomastia, right? They can get the double mastectomy, trans boys can't. There are like some rare cases where like, I don't know, a 17-year-old goes to the military and whatnot and before is able to get the surgery. And it's always so shocking that the people who do not understand trans healthcare cheering on the abuse of trans kids, trans adults, and so on, and they portray it as like something good. And all of these things, like the lies that like someone like Asmongold is pushing, oh, you're talking about gender ideology with children, you want to gender confuse children, or there's like a perversion and fetishization.
What do you think happens whenever people like me, or people that are more extreme than me, inevitably get control of the government? Yes. What do you think happens to all the people that were tweeting nonstop about trans kids? What happens to them? That's right. Stop f***ing with kids. Stop trying to, gender confuse children. I'm not talking about 17. We're talking about 7. If you were like, Nyara has said that children can't consent to puberty.
I mean, they can't, but the statement is still taken out of context.
No reasonable, normal person spends this much time trying to like basically communicate and advocate for kids to be confused about their gender.
And, you know, this is kind of like what it leads up to is the idea that everybody is cis. And if you have a trans person communicate with a child, or you have a child know that trans people exist, then they are being confused. It's crazy. Obviously, Asmongold cheers on for like this sort of violence. I saw that domain make a video about it, going a little bit more in depth. Obviously, he doesn't personally say to go out there and harm trans people. No. He sees the violence, the cruelty of the administration, and wants it to be even more extreme. I want the FBI to do these things, right? Which is why a lot of right-wingers get away with like using the systemic oppression and so on, and inciting violence against marginalized groups, but still having like the ability to try to like hide it, even though Asmongold is not really good at like hiding it. These things, that is what Asmongold wants. He wants more of that. He wants people like me to be put on trial because I share my experience as a trans woman who used to be a trans kid. So anyways, you see the violence, you see the hatred for the trans community, and everything is like turned into a spectacle. And I'm going to talk about the war on trans people, how these things happen. But actually, I saw Hassan's stream, and he was talking about like this clip here, and he actually said the things that I wanted to talk about.
This administration, just like any other administration, is never going to give a fuck about your needs, even if your needs are somewhat in line with their agenda. Okay, they're going to do whatever they have to maintain the capitalist order. But hey, actions like this very clearly work. It's a marketing technique, it's a division technique, and it very clearly works on a lot of people because they feel like the administration is responding to their needs. First, they're taught that their enemy is trans people or undocumented migrants or black people. Then the administration, after, the governments, after teaching them that, will then do a little bit in the direction or a lot in the direction of harming said marginalized groups. And then that makes you feel like your needs were met. All the while, your real needs, they're never going to be met.
It is just performative. The criminalization of gender affirming care for trans children, right? Cis kids can still access these things. If you have precocious puberty, you're still going to be prescribed puberty blockers, because forcing a kid through puberty at such an early age is obviously bad for them. But giving a trans kid time to figure themselves out and work with experts before, making a decision what the right path for them is, that is wrong, and they can't consent to it because, they are underage and so on. This one goober was like, Inyara advocating for puberty blockers on kids is disgusting. What the f are you saying? Who do you think puberty blockers were invented for? It's so dumb. Like gender affirming surgeries. You're still going to have gender reassignment surgeries on intersex infants with ambiguous genitalia. Obviously, I'm not advocating for a trans girl to have bottom surgery at the age of 14. Obviously, that's ridiculous. Nobody's advocating for these things. No reasonable person is advocating for these things. I'm just saying that if you want to actually advocate and actually talk about the abusive things happening, look at what they are doing to intersex infants. Look at how they are forcing them into a binary box because society can't accept that there is not just either male or female. And if you're a male, you will be a man. And if you're a female, you will be a woman. It is crazy. It is insane. I also saw, Asmongold trying to backpedal and being like, oh no, he's just talking about the epidemic of adults doing internet hypno on children. This guy literally gets his talking points from UK TERFs. TERFs like Glinner. That is his source. It is so incredibly unhinged. I also saw him, now that I'm shadowbanned and whatnot, reply to Whoith. You don't have a right to groom children and mutilate their bodies. This isn't a right that straight people have either. I mean, when we talk about grooming children, who grooms children? You got transphobic people, you got people like this guy, this Solionath dude, who is if Israel was never created, I would have a cute younger sister clinging to me and hugging me and kissing my cheek and running her hands through my hair. And all of the, this is so unhinged. This is grooming, actual grooming. Right? You have a relationship with someone who is younger than you, less experienced, and you kind of form a bond. It's so weird. And these are the guys who call me a groomer pedophile, just so you know. Disgusting. Always a self-report. But all of these things are incredibly performative. Obviously, right-wing propaganda is literally based on conspiracy theories. You got the QAnon shit You got the conspiracy theories of like, oh, they're turning the frogs gay. They run on conspiracy theories. Sometimes there's like some grain of truth with it, which makes it like incredibly dangerous when it comes to like conspiracy theories. But all of these right-wingers were being paid millions to spread conspiracy theories. Illegal immigrants are stealing the healthcare. They are paying millions to make the mice transgender. Do not worry about why you don't have healthcare. Do not worry about what is like happening with like gun violence, the mass shootings, and so on, the mental health crisis. Do not worry about these things. Worry about like what some trans girl is doing in school sports. Oh, we need to ban the men invading the little girls' sports and stealing their medals. We need to ban the trans women from going into the women's restrooms. They were taught that trans people are the problem. They were taught that immigrants are the problem. This is why they are suffering. They can't afford housing because all of their housing is given to refugees. All the illegal immigrants, they are stealing the healthcare, the housing. This is why the cost of living is so high. This is why you can't afford groceries. This is why there are food deserts in the US and so on. Like, this is what they run on. They were taught that all of their problems are not caused by billionaires. You know, XAI building another data center and ruining the environment and so on. Don't worry about like January 6th. Don't worry about like all of the violence, the hatred, the divide and so on. No. Focus on trans people. And then you got like Fox News always when, you know, things happening in the world where they are like, oh, maybe you shouldn't buy gifts for all of your children. Maybe you should actually prepare for like a recession. And then they start talking about like, oh, trans rights are being destroyed. The gender ideology is destroyed. They're bringing back the 10 Commandments into the schools, bringing back common sense. And then, you know, they see these things happening and they are cheering for it. They're cheering for this violence. This is not going to fix real world issues. And people see that their lives are getting worse. And then, you know, they will turn on the administration. And you already see that with the approval ratings. Obviously, like online, on Twitter and so on, trans people still get a lot of hatred. When it comes to like, you know, Asmongold responding to Hewwo, then having her deal with like a lot of like harassment from like his fan base. Literally Elon Musk responded, obviously boosting it more. Isn't that crazy? It's kind of like J.K. Rowling quote tweeting me, boosting a lot of like the abuse that trans people have to endure on like a daily basis. All of it is just a distraction, and a lot of people are, you know, celebrating this when it comes to like Twitter. When it comes to like the chronically online, all of these like performative things, they are for the chronically online. When you saw like Pete Hegseth being like, oh, women are now banned from serving in the military. Oh, trans people are banned. We are going to make the military great again, manly and masculine. We're going to raise the bar and so on. And he has like a whole ass spectacle. It is not actually for those in the military, for like the sergeants and so on. No. It is just for the chronically online to sit at home, you know, for like the Asmongold who are cheering for it and being like, yeah, best, whoa. This is what they are doing. All of it is performative. None of it is actually fixing any of the real life struggles. They are making it up and then pretending that they are the only solution for it. And that this is somehow fixing your life just to exploit you further. Literally, that is all they are doing. Your life is not being improved by right-wingers coming for trans people, lying about trans healthcare, and presenting it as something that is like ruining the world. You will not have healthcare just because trans people are suffering. There's not going to be less violence, less gun violence, less suffering because of like you can't afford grocery prices or like rent and whatnot if trans people are struggling. If you're making the lives of trans people hell, you will still be exploited by the people, by the 1% who is actually the problem. Free speech, unless you're opposing the fascist regime. Freedom of expression, unless you're anything than like a traditional woman and a traditional man. All of it is just conspiracy theories. All of it is just performative. All of it is literally just to demotivate people, especially trans people, from fighting back.